everyone, good morning. My name is Sweta Bothra. I'm a clinical psychologist, and today I'm here to talk about how we can stay positive through a pandemic. Before I get into the details of the strategies and things like that, I just take a minute to talk about the approach I'll take. So I'll introduce the concept of hope and how it helps. Then I'll go on to talk about a series of strategies that we can start practicing immediately to stay positive. Um, some strategies may apply to you, some may not. So keep in mind that and practice things that you can use. I will try to wrap up this webinar, say, in around 40 to 45 minutes, post which I'm very happy to take on the questions, answer your queries. Every once in a while, I'll look down at my phone because I need to look at the phone to access the questions you guys are sending in. So just so that you know when I'm looking down. Also, if you can hear me or if you cannot hear me, please send a message and I'll get to know if there's anything wrong with the audio or video. So that's clear. Let's get started, right? So, how can we stay positive? Uh, these anxious and unusual time bring unforeseen difficulties for all of us. Now, the entire world is currently working from home. So, there are challenges around working from home. You need to kind of manage home and responsibilities of work. So there's additional responsibilities for all of us currently. Children are at home, so we need to ensure that they are engaged, they are safe. Our elders are at home. There are challenges around those who are living, away from their partners, living away from their families, so taking care of them. We are away from our friends and family, so social distancing kind of brings with its own series of challenges. Therefore, it is hard to stay positive during these times. And currently, some of us may experience or feel that positive emotions are unwarranted or even inappropriate, right? I remember a client of mine was talking to me that how they experience guilt because of whatever is happening around, and that they feel that they are unable to help in manners that they would like. So for some of us, the experience of positive emotion also comes with an associated guilt or associated negative emotions. And right now it feels like the only way to stay positive is if we have adopted some effective coping strategies. So those of us who struggle to cope with a difficult situation are at risk of experiencing more negative emotions. Not saying that all of us are happy. It's a tough time that we are all experiencing, and it's natural to expect that all of us are experiencing a little bit of stress, a little bit of anxiety. And today I'm going to talk about how we can, you know, get control of those things. So, what are some of the benefits of staying positive? Some of you may know all of these, some of you may not, but I'll quickly go over them. So, it results in greater physical and psychological well being. So, the more positive you are, the more happy you are, the better physical health you have. So, there are reduced number of physical illnesses, and the more better psychological mind frame. You are able to look at things in a positive way. You are able to look at setbacks as challenging, right? Because there is greater physical and psychological well-being, it automatically results in overall increased life satisfaction. If you generally are someone who is optimistic, who's used to thinking positive even in difficult times, you are less threatened by a challenging or a difficult situation. You start to see them as challenge, and overall your view of life is generally positive. Because of all of this, you also have a tendency to adopt a growth mindset. Now, growth mindset is something that encourages us to see the positives even in a negative situation. It is where our brain automatically picks up on the positive instead on the negative. But you will realize that some of us are tuned to looking at the negatives and we then discount the positive. So staying positive does have those benefits. It contributes to clearer thinking. Think of a day when you were feeling great. Nothing significant, no major event, but you're just you woke up feeling great. So what happens? You think better, you're able to process information better, you're able to make better decision compared to a day when, say, you've not slept well and woken up irritated, you've just had a conflict with your partner or someone at work. So positive emotions also expands our cognitive framework. It increases resilience. Now, what is resilience? Resilience is the ability to bounce back from an adversity. So, people who are better able to cope with stressors, people who, after a major tragedy, they come out with a host of positive emotions, or they come out feeling more stronger, we call them as more resilient. So positive emotion contributes, makes you more resilient over a period of time. It also reduces, and in some cases completely undo the impact the stressor has caused for you. Now imagine if you're someone who's inherently positive. I'm not saying that positive people don't experience stressors, but positive people are better at managing stressors. So if you had a difficult conversation with your boss, or you had a troubled relationship, staying positive can undo some of those negative impacts. We all know stress, if it lasts for a longer period of time, not only results in psychological consequences like depression, anxiety, but also results in physical health consequences like cardiovascular diseases, increased hypertension, diabetes, your skin conditions, and in severe cases is also associated with cancers and things like that. Staying positive can reduce its impact and sometimes also undo the impact, so you get better faster. It improves your immunity. Now, our immune system is like a police, right? It stops viruses, foreign bodies from attacking us. Again, if we are positive, we have a healthy functioning immune system compared to when we are negative. And I'm sure you guys will be able to come up with examples for this. Just think of a time when for a day or two you've not been feeling very great. It's more likely that you would have picked up signs like headache or common cold, especially when you are sad. So, those are indicative of a slightly weaker, less optimal immune system. And most importantly, it makes you and it allows you to stay motivated and be perseverant in your efforts. So not only you wake up excited, you wake up more focused about your goal, you are also unlikely to give up sooner. So you tend to keep at it, keep trying, right? So, what has happened because of the current pandemic that we are all experiencing? So, both positive and negative, right? Positive in the sense that the best of human nature can rise up to a challenging situation. And this is what this crisis has taught us, right? No matter what you throw at us, we are able to get better. So, there is increased gratitude for being safe and alive. All those of us who are safe at home are able to appreciate this more. We have a roof above our head, we have food, we have people around us whom we love. So we are very, very grateful for these things, right? There's also heightened love and increased closeness in relationship, right? Now there are partners, there are couples who hardly get to spend time together. They have very odd working hours. So, say one partner is working during the day and the other partner is working during night. So, it's very difficult for them to find a common time to get spend quality time. So, this crisis, because of the current lockdown, has made that possible. But what it has also done is that it has reduced the feeling of hope for some of us, right? Now, before we talk about what hope is, I just want to talk about how positive emotions helps us during a crisis situation, right? Now, according to a research, there are certain specific benefits of staying positive, especially during a difficult time, during a crisis. It reduces the physiological arousal. So when you are stressed, when you are anxious, when you are angry, or largely when you experience a certain negative emotions, your bodies tend to react. So what we call the autonomic nervous system is activated. So there is tightness in the chest, there are knots in your stomach, you find it difficult to breathe, there is a heaviness in the chest. Staying positive can mitigate all of these things. If you are positive, the baseline is resulted, or we go back to the baseline much faster, right? So your heart rate comes down much faster, the difficulty in your stomach is resolved much faster if we are able to stay positive. Secondly, what it does, it broadens our cognitive functioning, whether it's attention, whether it's problem solving. If you have not slept well, you wake up feeling cranky, irritable. If it's just one day, chalta hai, we are able to manage it. Now think of a time when you wake up not sleeping well for a couple of days. You are unable to pay attention, and the same holds true if you're experiencing a negative emotion. But staying positive over a period of time improves your attention, improves your creativity, it improves how you process information, it improves how better you get at making decisions. So that is more crucial during a crisis, because if we are not able to, we will often react with panic, we will react with misinformed information, which further results in a host of negative consequences. It results in resource building. Now, according to a theory by Barbara Fredrickson, who is a positive psychology expert, every time we experience a positive emotion, it broadens our framework and it builds on resources. So, the more positive we are, we the better physical resources we have in terms of better sleep, better appetite, better activity levels. The more positive we are, the better psychological resources we have in terms of hope, in terms of optimism, resilience. We also have better relationships. If you are positive, you are better able to solve the conflicts in a relationship. You are better able to maintain relationships over a period of time. So, and these three things are most crucial during a crisis situation. Need to have a lower arousal, need to be able to make informed decisions realistically, and need to have resources so that we cope better. So what we are now going to talk about, how we can start cultivating hope and optimism. Now, hope as a concept, psychologists have really struggled to define it. I mean, what is hope? Because it's very subjective in that sense. For me, it could be something, for you, it could be something else. If I were to put together all the ideas around what hope is, it's basically a feeling or inspiration, something positive about the future. And you kind of tend to define it in terms of it's a warm fuzzy feeling, you're more willing to do something, you're more upbeat in terms of your mood and things like that, you're more creative when you look at a future event or when you look at future in general. Now, there are some researchers who talk about hope is something that is utopian, right? Which means if all of us were to be hopeful together, we can solve any problem. Some researchers say that hope is something that you choose to be. So you choose to be hopeful when the times are hard. So it's an intentional activity, right? For some, it's a personality trait. And if you just look around, you will find that there are some individuals whom you know are innately hopeful. If you kind of trace back through their history, you will realize that it's something that were noticed even when they were young, when they were in school, they were in college. So then, is hope a personality trait? There is some evidence to believe that hope is a personality trait. It can be either passed on from parents, it can be based on the kind of experiences you have. Hope can also result from experiences, either way, positive or negative. So if you always have positive experiences, you have realized how it can contribute to a better future, so thus you are more hopeful. If you've had a series of negative experiences and you've learned that being hopeful helps you mitigate the impact better, you then make that a habit. So in future instances also you are able to display hope. It's a choice. I have no choice but to be hopeful, because that's the only thing that kind of motivates me. That's the only thing that kind of drives me every morning, hoping that things would change. So, some people, it's a choice. So, essentially, what I'm talking about is not only there is a goal that you need to follow, but there also is a pathway. Okay, these are some of the things I need to get done, and then there is an agency. I believe I have the skills to get those things done. And if I were to bring all of these together, that is what hope looks like. So it's not just any feel good emotion that you experience after watching a funny video, or you experience after a pleasant conversation. It's more dynamic. It is something that drives you even a difficult situation. you know uh, some movies, they talk about hope is a good thing and no good thing ever dies. So it is something that drives you to experience more positive emotions, and the more positive emotions you experience, the more positive thoughts you have. So this model that you see on the right, which says thoughts lead to emotions or cognitions lead to emotions, it also goes the other way around. If you feel hopeful, your thoughts are automatically more positive, right? How does it impact on behavior? People who are hopeful, the kind of goals they will choose are slightly different from people who are not so innately optimistic. So, optimistic people are actively engaged in learning. So, right now, if you look at the current lockdown, you will be able to identify individuals who are making the most of this time by learning new skills. They are constantly looking out for, in terms of making new recipes if they're interested in cooking, in terms of upgrading a skill through these online programs, or some people who enjoy gardening are learning new skills. So essentially they are constantly engaging in some form of the other learning. That fosters growth mindset. They are able to plan. Okay, so the lockdown for now, say it's extended till the end of the month. What are some of the things that I'm going to do once the lockdown ends? How is it possible for me to apply some of the learnings that I have had in this period once the lockdown gets over? So that's again something, a very very active process, right? They are then able to also monitor the process. I learned skill A yesterday. Today I have learned skill B. Is there a significant difference in the way I have learned? Has it added to my existing knowledge? What can I do better? If I am applying this skill, am I able to apply it to the best of my ability? If not, what are some of the things? So they are able to monitor the process. They are also open to more feedback from others, right? Now, people who lack hope adopt mastery goals. Now, mastery goals are not all bad, right? These are things you ought to do, these are things you must do, because accomplishment is important, because tasks are important. So, people who are less hopeful may go about their routines, they may not take the effort to learn something new, they will probably do whatever is essential, whatever is required to wrap up the day. So they may feel a lack of control over whatever is happening around, right? So this is an uncertain situation. We don't know what's going to happen next. But people who are hopeful are able to understand that, able to internalize it and stay positive. But people who are less hopeful, they're constantly worrying about when will this happen, what will be the consequences, what will be the long term consequences of it, what if I contract an illness, and therefore they tend to act helpless. I have no control over the situation. This is the worst possible thing that can happen to. And then there is a limited belief in their capacity to do things. It's not like they don't have the capacity, but they lack belief in their own capacity to resolve the situation they are experiencing. Now, these were certain concepts related to hope. So, if I were to quickly summarize in two sentences, hope is a warm, fuzzy feeling about future and our belief in our own self that we'll be able to get things done. People who are hopeful are more learning oriented. People who are less hopeful can sometimes experience stress and anxiety in challenging situations. Now, having said that, how can one work on building hope and optimism, right? So the strategies that I'm going to talk about now, I'm going to divide them into your thoughts, what are you thinking, what you do, things that you do on a regular basis, who are you with, how are you living, so the kind of lifestyle you've adopted, and how are you talking to others. So let's start with the thoughts, what are we thinking, right? So beliefs are almost like things we tell ourselves, certain ideologies that we've kind of held on to growing up and things like that. So hope, if it's a concept, there are certain beliefs associated with hope. And for you to know whether they are helpful or in the right direction, you could ask some of these questions to yourself. What does it mean to have hope? Does it mean that you will be able to sustain longer in difficult situations? Then great, you should have it. Does it mean that you don't have to depend on those around you when there are challenging situations? So be it. What are some of the benefits of having hope? It kind of helps you sleep better at night, or it kind of drives you, motivates you. So need to explore what are some of your associated thoughts and cognitions about hope. What does a hopeful person look and sound like? A hopeful person probably is not nothing physically different about the person, but the outlook might be more uh, pleasant. Person might be more calmer. So you can start imbibing those traits. Have you ever used hope in your life? Look back. It's not the first time we are experiencing anxiety and negative emotion. I'm sure each one of us have had difficult days in the past. What helped us get better? Was it hope that if you keep trying, it will get better? And if it has gotten better, then if it worked better, then there is no reason to believe that it's not going to work better again. Are there risks of having hope? Are you a hopeless optimist who is not able to function realistically? Then you need to change some of these thoughts associated with your hope. So essentially what I'm saying is what you tell yourself matters the most, because these are automatic thoughts. It's not like you are physically talking, but when we sit by ourselves or when we engage with certain material, there are certain thoughts that keep coming to us, and those become our self narrative. They can be reasonable or negative. If they are negative, you need to be able to challenge them into more helpful, realistic thoughts. If they are unrealistic, again, you need to challenge them. So, what you need to do is A, first identify whether they are helpful or unhelpful. Once you've identified they are unhelpful, you need to challenge them. I'll just come in a bit about certain challenging techniques. And once you are able to challenge some of these negative thoughts, substitute them with more desirable ones. What strategies can you use? This is something, it's my favorite technique. I often tell my clients, if you are thinking that I am not good enough, do you have any evidence to prove you're not good enough? Now, crucial here is to distinguish between a fact and an opinion. Fact is something that can be proven, everybody has evidence of it. Opinion is only what I believe, and it can be biased. So gather evidence. It's not going to get better. Gather evidence, and then once you have gathered evidence, then you need to start exploring alternatives. What are other ways of looking at the same situation? Am I assuming that my view of things is the only one possible? So look for alternatives. Also ask yourself, what would you tell your friend in a situation like this? So you need to start challenging some of these dysfunctional thinking that we keep happening. You did not answer my phone, it means you're ignoring me. This person got the virus, it means everybody around him has the virus. There is so much of misinformation. There's so much of misinformation currently around us. It's a good practice to kind of use some of these techniques to start challenging some of the assumptions, right? What are you doing? Avoid blame. Are we constantly blaming others around us for our condition? So you need to focus on accountability. Focus on what is within your control. Currently, within your control is your hygiene, your health, how you can take care of your family members. Just do that. Find a clear path. If the goal is to stay safe, what are some of the pathways that you need to follow, and what are some of these things that you need to then tell yourself? Am I safe? What are some of the plans? Okay, if I need to stay safe, I need to ensure that my contact is minimum, which means I need to then tell myself to be positive, or I need to kind of tell myself that if you're stepping out of the home, make sure the contact is minimum. So these things then matter the most. Take stock of your strengths, right? Like I said, we are all hardwired to focus on the negatives, but we are not all bad. Each one of us have strengths which we find it very easy to overlook. So find those strengths, focus on what your strengths are. Look back, right? You must have faced with a difficult situation. What is that one skill you were able to display then so that the circumstance became easier for you? Create a hope journal. Your strengths can be journal. Whether you do it at the end of the day before going to bed, or whether you do this the first thing in the morning, or you do it anytime during the day, it's absolutely okay. Creating a hope journal means you are actually documenting positive thoughts. Once we start documenting them, they almost become more firm for ourselves, and further it reinforces our thinking. So even if it's one sentence at the end of the day, please document. Start the day by focusing on your goals. So first thing in the morning, please do not watch news, because there's so much negative information that is available. What you can do is, what is that one positive thing that I want to get done today? Or start your day by reflecting, what was that one positive thing that I did yesterday? If you liked it, can you incorporate that in your day to day, right? So what are some of the things that you are doing? Focus on that, right? So we've spoken about thinking, we are now talking about doing. One strategy that helps is visualizing your best possible self, right? In the given context, it becomes very difficult to think in terms of what my long term plans are, and sometimes long term plans can also be very distracting. So, a technique that I often use with my clients is that, look, think about the immediate future, think about the lockdown, right? What is it that one thing you'll be able to do that? So it's almost like a relaxing meditative exercise. So find a quiet comfortable corner, um, sit down, close your eyes, put on a soft music or any kind of music, or no music if you prefer it that way, and then start visualizing one scale or one positive aspect, or if you've identified one goal that you would like to pick on, or a skill that you would like to improve, as you having achieved them, and then in as much as detail as possible visualize how you are applying them in your day-to-day scenario. So that can be very helpful. It can instantly make you feel more positive emotions. It also reduces stress, because positive emotions reduces the activation of the autonomic nervous system and increases the functioning of the parasympathetic nervous system. And just a little bit of science here: autonomic nervous systems are systems which is active when we are stressed and anxious. Parasympathetic nervous systems are systems that is active when we are more relaxed, once we are more calm. So the kind of fuzzy feeling, warm fuzzy feeling you get when you're with your loved one, when you hold your dog, that's when you know the parasympathetic nervous system is active. And because some of us don't have access to loved ones right now, we are all maintaining physical distance, visualizing your best positive self can reduce the activation of your autonomic nervous system. Acts of kindness. Currently, we are all cooped in small spaces at our homes, we are not going out, but that doesn't mean we won't be able to help those around you. Figure out innovative ways to help. Now, this is important because the moment you engage in acts of kindness, you start focusing on the others, and you are no longer focusing on your own negative thoughts or your shortcomings or the series of assumptions that we often have, thus making you experience more positive emotions, contributing to hope. It doesn't have to be big things, right? If you're someone who likes to volunteer for an NGO, reach out to them, ask them if you could do something digitally. Is there article that you can write, or is there money you can donate, or can you volunteer to teach? It's all possible, right? Create something to look forward to. And some of you may say that this actually is the definition of hope. I am hopeful for the future because I have something to look forward to. So this is actually a strategy by which you can continue to motivate yourself. So say for example, if you have identified as something that you want to do in terms of, I want to finish reading this book by the end of tomorrow, then you need to calculate backwards and see how many hours I need to put in, or is it that it's only limited. So then it kind of gives you something to look forward to for tomorrow. So one exercise that you can do is, before you go to bed, right, you could just pin down 2 or 3 things that excites you, that's something you really love to do, and if you can, make a plan, rough plan around it. It doesn't have to be etched in stone. And the next morning when you wake up, not only are you more in control of what the day looks like, you also start your day with a very warm fuzzy feeling, because you know you have to get some of these things done. Think of a time, when you have to go travel, how we wake up feeling excited about the travel. It doesn't have to be travel or anything else that excites you. We can create these moments of excitement for us, positive excitement, right? So work on the way you think, change or add some of the things to your schedule. Who are you with? Now, this is very important, right? There's a huge barrage of literature that talks about the importance of social support, and how social support can mitigate the impact of stress, and how social support is very crucial whether you are stressed, anxious, depressed, lonely, and things like that. And we always talk about social support in therapy, so to speak. So here you have to be very careful in choosing who you spend time with. Now, this strategy may not work for those who are currently indoors and are experiencing troubled relationships. But broadly, what you need to do is, you need to avoid naysayers. Naysayers are individuals who are constantly criticizing you for anything. They are rarely available to appreciate you. Even if you've done something well, they are going to find something negative about you. So hang around with people who encourage you, who are positive, who makes you feel happy, and look for role models. Role models doesn't always have to be celebrities who we watch on televisions and things like that. Role models can come from any walk of society. They can be your domestic helpers, they can be your colleagues, your neighbors. Identify one role model, pick up something from them, practice it till it forms a habit. Now, for those who are currently stuck at home, and for those whose home environments are not very positive, and for those who anyway have a relationship difficulty and currently are probably experiencing more difficulty because we are all at home, it's a difficult time, right? So what can you do is identify these people in your life, and I'm sure if you will try hard, you will be able to identify one friend who you felt really connected with when you were a child. Reconnect with them, whether it's a neighbor, whether it's a friend, whether it's an ex-colleague, whether it's someone currently at work. Reconnect. Make sure you send them a message, you call them. If your loved ones are away from you, or if your children, your parents are not living with you, make sure you kind of engage in one emotional connect a day, right? Video call them, email them, SMS them, WhatsApp, whatever is convenient. Currently, there are so many of these apps that allows you to engage with friends in innovative ways. Whether you're playing a game, whether you're learning a skill, whether you're doing anything, you could always plan to have meals online, right? For those of us who are so used to having weekly meals with our friends and family, it doesn't have to stop. You just need to get a little bit more creative. Put on a video camera and do the same. It's hard but not impossible, because we are so used to being in physical contact that currently all of us are possible that we are experiencing loneliness and isolation. But the important thing is, be in touch with people who make you feel good, who are positive, who encourage you and not criticize you. Whether you're doing it offline or online, it doesn't matter, right? Then how are you living? What kind of lifestyle you have created for yourself? Gratitude is very crucial. Again, a huge amount of research says that if we are able to adopt an attitude of gratitude, we not only experience more positive emotions, but there are a huge benefits. We are physically more healthy, we are psychologically more healthy, we are better able to perform, our relationships get better. And it doesn't have to be grand gestures of gratitude where you buy them expensive presents or you make them feel special by doing something elaborate from them. It could be a small thank you at the end of the day, it could be a small thank you message, it could just be a pat on the back, right? It could just be a note. Express gratitude. For currently, people who we want to show gratitude are all the frontline workers, right? They are the ones who are keeping us safe. Reflect on what went well through the day. So adopt, make this a lifestyle habit. I often ask my clients to start a self-esteem journal. A self-esteem journal is where I ask them at the end of the day, take 5 minutes, take 10 minutes, and make an entry about at least one thing minimum that you did made you feel good about yourself. So I was able to wake up on time. Again, it doesn't have to be a rocket science kind of an experience. I was just able to wake up on time. I was able to maintain my schedule. I was able to tick off most of the items on my to-do list, or I was able to relax today and not worry about what lays ahead, because some of us are finding it very difficult to just unwind and relax. So reflect on what went well. Contribute to others, like acts of kindness correlates directly with positive emotions, and not to show someone. It could be small acts of kindness. It could mean that if your neighbor has probably run out of a particular vegetable, you just volunteer, you offer to give them small acts of kindness. Or in any way, if you're contributing, if your grandparents are currently at home and their only social limit contact was when people would visit them, if they are not able comfortable using technology, arrange a video call for them. That in itself is an act of kindness. Learn to forgive. I mean, we all like to hold on, but it doesn't help us in any way. At max, it's only kind of contributing to more negative emotions for yourself, because the person whom we are angry with or holding on to hostility against, they are probably continuing with their life. So learn to forgive, learn to let go. Smile. Now this may sound strange, but we smile, there is a particular facial movement that happens, and there are certain facial muscles that move, right? Now, when this act of smiling happens, it signals our brain to communicate that something positive has happened. So, when we send that signal to the brain, we automatically experience more positive emotions. Spending time with others releases a certain hormone in our body, what we call oxytocin, that mitigates the impact of stress, that completely reduces the production of stress hormone cortisol. So smiling can have a similar effect. Of course, it's not something you will see if you just do it once, but therefore this is what I speak about, making a lifestyle habit. Along with it, you of course need to eat well, sleep well, exercise well. This is something I always say in all my webinars. It's not something we can ignore. Lastly, how are you talking? So I started by saying how are you thinking. That is essentially how we talk to ourselves. Here it's also crucial is how you talk to others, because how we talk to others not only impacts how they feel, it also reinforces a certain thinking pattern in us, and therefore associated behaviors. Choose words that encourage action. Okay, it doesn't mean that you have to overlook some of the things they did that might have hurt you, but the idea is to kind of communicate in a manner that encourage certain actions at their end. So if you are upset by someone, instead of blaming, hey, you did this and you are the one responsible for my unhappiness, you can use I statement saying, I feel upset when you behave like this. I would rather appreciate if you were to make certain changes at your end. It allows them, or it makes them believe that you are willing. Not only are you expressing how you're feeling, you're also opening up a dialogue where you're giving them the freedom, the giving them the choice to kind of make certain changes at their end. There is a question, I'll just come back to it in terms of creative activities. Focus on others' strengths. When we give positive messages to others, it encourages them to not only give positive messages to ourselves, but again, like I mentioned, we are shifting focus from our negatives to their positives, which further contributes to our positive emotions. And stay respectful. You might not always agree with what the others are saying, but you don't really have to be disrespectful about it. You can always listen, you can always acknowledge, and at the end of the day, if you see there is reason in what they are saying, make changes at your end. But if you see there are no reasons for you to make those changes, continue your practices, but just be respectful, right? So we spoke about thinking, doing, who are you spending time with, what are you talking, and a lifestyle kind of a thing. So now these are some strategies that you could start implementing immediately. My recommendation would be to pick each within a broad category, practice for a couple of days, see how it goes. If it works well, keep adding to it, right? So if I were to kind of summarize, is that you need to identify your negative thoughts and learn to challenge them. It's not easy, but it's not impossible. It's like any other skill. The more you practice, the better you get. Remember, Rome was not built in a day. Focus on accountability for yourself and for others. So focus on things that you can control. Do them and give feedback in a way others are able to act on that. Visualize your best possible self. I spoke about how this can mitigate the impact of stress. So work on those things. Surround yourself with positive people. It's not the number of people that matters, but it's actually what matters is the depth and the meaningful relationships. So quality relationships, even if it's a handful, that's sufficient. Practice gratitude and give back to others. So express gratitude, say thank you, and make sure in some way or the other, small, big, doesn't matter, give it back to them. Be optimistic even for others, even when you are expressing, communicating to them. So that's where I end my talk today. Now, I have got certain questions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read those questions and try and answer them. If you have more questions, please keep them coming. So I'm going to look at my phone because that's where I can access them from. So Apratim has sent in a question saying, how much does creative activities like art and craft keep our mind positive during these times? It's unimaginable how these activities can help. So the idea is that I'll go back to the science that I spoke about. Anytime we are in a crisis or any negative emotions, a conflict, our bodies and our brains start preparing us for the crisis, which means we are constantly hyper, we are aroused. Sometimes we don't really understand our slight changes in the way our hearts and internal organs function. We may realize there's tightness in the chest, which means again our autonomic nervous system is active. Activities like art, craft, or any activities that either you are interested in or that you have learned over a period of time has a calming effect on you. Engaging in those activities can instantly reduce the activation of the autonomic nervous system and activate the parasympathetic nervous system. Now, to keep in mind, parasympathetic nervous system is associated with a relaxation response. So, those activities are a big yes. In fact, art, apart from this, art is also therapeutic because some of us find it very, very easy to express our thoughts, emotions through art. We are able to also channelize some of our negative thoughts through art. It is an excellent coping mechanism. So yes, it's a huge uh, yes to art and craft. And more than art and craft, it could be anything that has a calming effect on you. For some of us, it's art and craft. For some of us, it's gardening. For some of us, it's cleaning. For some of us, it's possibly stretching. So the rule of thumb here is find out what makes you feel better and do more of it. I hope I answered your question, Apratim. There's a question by Vaishnavi. How do we sustain it? Yes, I think this is something, it's much easier said than done. And to be very, very honest, it's very easy for me to sit and talk about this, but practicing is the most tough choice. Like I said, is we need to start somewhere. Of all the things that I spoke about, pick any one thing that you think is the easiest for you to start practicing today. Is it gratitude? So be it. And you keep doing it forcefully sometimes for as long as it takes for you to become a habit. Some researchers says it takes 21 days, some says no, the number of days doesn't really have any validity to it. It's how you are able to train yourself. So it's not so much about what I need to do as much it's about how I am doing. It doesn't have to be 20 things to stay positive. It could be one or two things also. If you realize that you are someone who's struggling largely with negative thoughts, that should be your goal. And if you were to kind of break it down into the simplest possible way, it could feel like at least I should be able to challenge one negative thought a day. And once you challenge that, you will instantly feel better. But you may realize that you're falling back into negative thinking patterns. Don't worry, it is natural. It takes time. So you need to remember to keep doing it. I mean, like anything, positive thinking is also a skill, and no skill can be mastered in a given day, right? So, like I said, there are a couple of things that we spoke about in terms of thinking, doing. Pick one strategy from each of this and start. If you think these are too many things, identify any two category and one strategy in it. break it down into the simplest possible way so that it's easier for you to engage in. Right? I hope I answered this question. Okay, there's one question on how to improve ourself in this time. Okay, so when you say ourself, is the question around uh, your eating habits, sleeping habits, or it's a broader question in terms of an attitude change? So I'm going to try and answer both. Routine is most important. Absence of structure, a routine, can be both a cause and symptom of emotional distress. So when we fall out of routines, we realize we experience more negative emotions, and the more negative emotions we experience, more harder it becomes for us to stay in routine. So it's a vicious cycle. So you need to ensure that you're doing the minimum or the maximum, I don't know where you fall on the spectrum, to get at least 8 hours of sleep, to eat at least 3 or 4 meals a day, and some form of physical activity. Now, the physical health benefits of physical activity is not something that we need to be reminded of. We are physically healthy, etc., etc. There are multiple things, but the mental health benefits of physical activity is rarely spoken about. I spoke about a hormone called oxytocin, which is released in our body when we spend time with loved ones. Similarly, there's another positive hormone, what we call endorphins. It is released in our bodies when we engage in some form of physical activity. Now, this hormone is what we also call the feel good hormone. It contributes to reduction in stress, reduction in anxiety, reduction in sadness. So if you realize that you're doing physical activity consistently for a week or 10 days, 20 days, there's no major change, but every day progressively you're feeling better. You're feeling better, which means you're better able to cope stresses, which means the things that would otherwise trigger you are no longer triggering you. So over a period of time, it can really help. The other thing I said I'll speak about in terms of managing attitude and all. So you realize that a lot of the time the conflict we experience is because there's a discrepancy in our attitude and in our behavior. One of the two needs to happen. Either we change our attitude to make it more aligned to the behavior, or we change our behavior to make it more aligned to the attitude. Find out what is the easiest for you and do it, right? So if it means that you need to make certain adjustments to the way you think, start there. Like I spoke earlier, that you have to keep practicing to challenge your negative thoughts. Do that. Um, if it means that you need to ask for help, do that. If it means that you need to eliminate certain practices that you engage in a day, do that. And then substitute them with better strategies. Um, I hope I answered the question, because I wasn't sure what the context here was. Guys, any other question? We still have some time. Okay, there are two questions. Please explain how to get rid of gadgets during this lockdown period. And the second is, how I know that my thoughts giving me proper or taking, how do I know that my thoughts are giving me power or taking it away? Yes, let's get the first one, how to get rid of gadgets. It's going to be hard. And this is because currently we are relying on technology for most of the things. If you want to stay connected with our family and friends, we are using technology. If you want to work, we are relying on technology, right? So currently, we have to understand that it is something that is necessary, but it doesn't mean that we use gadgets all the time. So if you're talking in relation to kids, make sure you engage in some play activities with them that doesn't need gadgets, right? So currently we are all working from home, which means we are sitting in front of the laptop, say from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., 7 p.m. What you need to do is, when you take breaks, which you must throughout the day, short breaks, make sure the breaks don't involve the use of gadget. So don't kind of take a break 10 minutes from working and go on your phones and log into social media. So those are the ways by which you can reduce the use of gadget. If especially you're talking in terms of children, follow a strict behavior schedule for them, right? So they'll have studies to do. You can say after every 2 hours of study you are allowed to use a gadget for 15 minutes. 5 minutes is too less, for 15 minutes. So negotiate with them, right? So if you're someone who is used to watching television during the evening when you're eating meal, make a conscious effort to stop that, because your eyes are tired, because you've sat through in front of the laptop and computers through the day. So essentially what I'm trying to say is that as much as possible, try to eliminate the gadgets we use during a break time. Eliminate the gadgets, or think of ways if those activities can be done without gadgets. The second question, how do I know my thoughts are giving me power or taking away? The easier way for is to know if a certain thinking style at the end of whatever time you have engaged in has resulted in certain positive experience. Now what you need to keep in mind, that this positive experience or this positive outcome that we are talking about should be objectively positive. So all of us are not alien to overthinking. Overthinking gives us a false sense of control. It makes us believe that the more thinking I do, the more I'll be able to kind of address a solution. That is not true. So watch out for that. The outcome should be positive, the outcome should be helpful. So I may feel better after overthinking because it feels like I've done something, but I have really not come out with any strategy to solve my problem. That is taking the power away from you. But after engaging in some deliberate thinking, problem solving, if you're able to arrive at a tangible or a more realistic solution to address your problem, that is giving you power. After thinking and after communicating that thinking, if you have been able to resolve a conflict in a realistic manner, that is giving you power. When you engage in challenging your thoughts, you will often realize that whether the thoughts are realistic or unrealistic. If they are unrealistic, they are taking power away from you. I am unlovable if I am not able to produce any facts to support that statement. That is the thought that is taking power away from me. So be mindful. Always look out for facts, look out for objectives. Okay, there's one more question. Oh, there are two. Everyone is talking about building new skills. I'm busy 14 hours with office, household, and kids. I feel I'm missing something when I'm not learning anything new. How to deal with this stress of coming out evolves from this crisis. I completely get it. I am your work. You're busy 14 hours, right? And I understand. At home, all of us are juggling with multiple responsibilities, right? But if you think you're spending too much time doing a particular activity, try to consciously reduce the time spent doing that activity. Ask for help, right? If you feel that there are members in your family who is not contributing or who could pick on a little bit more role, make sure you reach out to them and you ask them for their help, and ask them in a manner that is encouraging. uh, how to deal with stress coming out evolves from this crisis. Like I said, a growth mindset can help, focusing on the positive. If you realize that you're spending too much time doing something but the results are not something that is helping you, stop the time, ask for help, limit the hours you're spending time at work if you feel that is beyond what is essential. Basically, try and follow a routine as much as a structure you are possible. Okay, the next question is, currently I'm into leasing. During this period, can I learn about banking for future growth? I may not be an expert to answer from a banking perspective, but if it's just a skill perspective, yes, sure, you can learn about any skill, whether it's banking, whether it's computer science, whether it's aeronautics. If it is something that interests you, you should go ahead. I am not the right person to answer whether the context is right in terms of the topic that you have chosen, banking and future growth. For that, I would recommend you to kind of consult someone from the field. Vivek wants to know tips for those who are staying alone. Okay, first of all, I want to acknowledge that those of us who are staying alone are finding it harder. So let's start there. Let's start by accepting that it is harder for me compared to most around us. Once there, a little bit of stress is kind of taken away, which means you are bound to experience moments of loneliness, you're bound to experience moments of stress. Then need to follow a structure, need to follow a routine as much as possible. So pretend it's a regular work day. Do things as much as possible as per what you were doing on a regular work day. Get up on time, try to wrap up some of the things that you would do before you leave for work as it is. Get on work. But for those who are staying alone, will have to make a bit more effort in connecting. Socialization, social contact is very crucial, Vivek, which means you need to maybe more than once in a day connect with those who are positive influences in your life, whether it's parents, partners, spouse, children, friends, doesn't matter. Every now and then you might want to kind of send out a text message, call them, schedule video calls, play games with them, and you can also go ahead and tell them, I am living alone, I am finding it harder, so I will reach out. So asking for help is not a sign of weakness. Make sure. Also, look back. Are there things that you were doing earlier, you are no longer doing them? If the answer is yes, try and pick on those skills, pick on those hobbies. You might not find them the most exciting right now. Start somewhere, start small. New skills. Use this time to watch things that you like, right? Idea is to kind of keep yourself busy, at the same time not so busy that you are not taking care of yourself. So self care is a priority, which includes eating on time, sleeping on time, physical activity and rest. You cannot compromise on these four things. I'll take one last question before I wrap this webinar today. Our challenging times like this can be transformed into opportunities for growth. A blanket answer would be yes, but we need to also keep in mind that opportunities for growth doesn't have to look extraordinary, right? Opportunity for growth could also mean if you have learned a skill at home, whether it's cooking, cleaning, anything. See, a growth mindset is something that fosters you to keep learning. If that is what you're talking about, yes, whether challenging time or not, we can definitely adopt a growth mindset. But if we want to make the most of this time, because some of us, especially who deal with people who are in sales or some professions, I can't think of now, may have a little bit of more extra time on their hand. So if you have that time, focus on growth, focus on skills, focus on certain strength that you would like to cultivate, focus on certain trait that you have and you would like to kind of navigate certain behaviors around it. All of this can be done. This opportunity can be used for that. Yes, I completely agree to that. Okay, so I think, guys, I would really thank you all for patiently listening to me, for patiently staying back to ask questions. I am not sure how much I was able to answer in terms of the specifics of question, but I really hope you find some of these tips and strategies helpful. We are doing this every Friday. So please come back every time we talk about a new topic, and would really like for you guys to be there. If you have any question about Inner Hour or about programs, please feel free to reach out to us. Okay. Thank you so much. I'm going to end this webinar. I hope to see you all soon again. Bye.